know much about Critical Drinker. I know zero about the Star Trek shit, so we are about to go into a deep dive. I know the Star Trek. If you want to watch a better Star Trek than Star Trek, watch the fucking Orville, because the Orville is awesome.
They say that an
Orville.
alcoholic can never truly get on the path to recovery until they've hit rock bottom. And that's exactly what Section 31 is for Star Trek. Absolute, complete, and total rock bottom. The end of the line. The deepest oceanic trench of despair where only slimy, deformed monster fish lurk. The very fecal-encrusted bedrock upon which all other crap masquerading as Star Trek now rests. A pointless, brainless, joyless vanity project made by a man who shouldn't be in charge of a Starbucks, never mind Star Trek. Watching this movie was 90 minutes of pure, unadulterated misery.
This is a movie. They made a Star Trek movie recently. I didn't even know about this. Is how bad it's gotten with Hollywood and their movies and stuff, and all these streaming services, that they can release stuff and I have no idea. And the sad thing is here, I actually really like all of the like reboot Star Trek movies. I never watched the original Star Trek run. It wasn't for me. I didn't care. I like watching what's his face be like, this is the Star Trek Enterprise. Beam me up, Scotty. Like William Shatner is not my jam. I do not like I didn't see the Ben Shapiro review of Batman. Dude, if he hated that Batman movie, he's stupid. I thought it was entertaining. And also, dude, come on, dude. Lenny Kravitz's daughter, bro. Woo! Dude, she's fucking hot, bro. I loved the Batman, dude. Anyways, Turkey Tom hated his review of it. It was hilarious. Dude, Turkey Tom. Bro, Turkey Tom is in a position right now where he's probably mad sad that his boyfriend Destiny is in trouble. Like, Destiny is in mad trouble and Turkey Tom has to stop glazing. This is probably tough for him. He's probably having a big internal struggle because of it. But I just think it's crazy that we have such desensitization of bad movies lately that something like an IP like Star Trek can drop something or Star Wars and nobody gives an absolute shit. Nobody cares. No one cares. Even in they don't give a slight smidge of a crusty jizz token of what's going on with the whole world. Like, there was a time and place where you could have been like, oh, dude, did you hear there's a new Star Trek movie coming out? And even though I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan, I know how powerful of an IP it is, and I'm like, whoa, dude, is it good? And they were like, yeah, dude, you should watch it. That's why I watched the Star Trek reboot movies. Like, the Khan thing I heard was fucking awesome. I watched it. It was fucking awesome. I liked that Rise of Khan movie. And then I watched the first movie, and then I watched the movie after that with Idris Elba, and I'm like, this is awesome, dude. I'm sold. Simon Pegg as Scotty and all this other stuff was so good. I was fucking jizzing out my earlobes. Tornadoes of come were hitting like trees and houses in the Midwest. There was a whole thing, and Trump had to like stop FEMA from being shitty or whatever, and it was like a big deal. Now, dude, they can drop something like this and I will not hear shit about it. There will be no buzz about it. Nobody will care about it, because instead of crafting like really good stories, they're just worried about like brownie points. And I think we're going to see an industry shift. I think we're going to see it swing back toward the middle again, because this shit's not working.
It was the creative equivalent of being forced to watch someone exhume the corpse of your beloved gran, dress her up in latex bondage gear,
Fucking come NATO, dude,
and fire her out of a howitzer. It's the kind of movie that retroactively makes me embarrassed for all of Star Trek, because no matter how good it once was, ultimately it was all leading up to this. Anyway, let's get this over with quickly so I can slip into something more comfortable, like a fucking coma. Section 31 begins in a parallel universe where Philippa Georgiou murders her entire family to become the leader of the Terran Empire, and the runner-up gets to become her lackey because he didn't have the inner girl boss that he needed to succeed. I wonder if this embittered rival with a very obvious grudge against her might become relevant later. Anyway, flash forward to the present and
well, this is a problem. I see him already kind of building the thing, and I think the girl boss thing is kind of annoying. Like, I think it is an issue. And this is like the opposite of what people said about the so I watched the Wakanda I can't remember what it was called, the Black Panther movie where it's got the fish people. I liked that movie. I know a lot of people said it was woke or whatever, but I saw the girl taking up her brother's mantle as perfect. I liked that. I liked it a lot, and I know that's going to be to the people who are watching this because you wanted to hear your views echoed or whatever. That's going to hurt. But I thought she was the perfect like a transition without them just fucking retconning him. The fact that when he died, there was going to be this hole. And it was very sad that he died. And the fact that she took over and it was somebody that they didn't have to rebuild throughout the story. It was somebody already there that didn't want to take up the mantle but had to take up the mantle. I thought they did some really good character work with her in that movie. And I thought she was a really good choice. And the way they wrote it, I thought was really good. Now, there are my problems with that movie. Like, kind of the influences behind the fish people I thought were kind of stupid and poorly written. But her as a character I thought was a very, very good transition. And I thought they built her character up in the right direction. Most of the time though, they just kind of fucking slap a chick in it and then they're like, she's overpowered, but she's gonna complain about being overpowered, and you're like, what the fuck, dude? Why don't you build her? That's the thing that we love about these over-the-top heroes, is they're there, they have this build up, then they get broke down and then they're built back up again. Like, you take any Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or any fucking Stallone movie where they were like the pinnacles of being badasses. They started kind of badass, but they get broke down because the odds are so much stacked against them that then they have to rebuild themselves out of that. That's the story we want. We want to see somebody get knocked down that shouldn't be knocked down and then rebuild themselves back up. You know, it's like you started from the bottom and you build yourself up to this level and then you get knocked back down to the level and build yourself back up again. That's to me how it works. It's like they don't understand. You're right, they don't understand character arcs, and that's the problem. I want to see female characters that are like fucking OP. I do. I like a good female character that's OP. I always have. I mean, having a hot fucking lead or hot chick just fucking tearing it up, absolutely love it. But if you're not going to do the character work that's necessary, get the fuck out of here. But I'm not the kind of guy that's like, oh, because there's a woman in it, I'm just going to write it off. That's like the whole South of Midnight drama. I'm like, she could be very interesting if the game's written really well. Now, I know that there's other drama behind the scenes with South of Midnight and all this other stuff, but at the same time, I want it to be good. I'm not willing to just look at something and say, oh, it's woke, and then write it off just right away. I want to actually get my own opinion on it. But most of the time what happens is they sit here, they spit in our mouth and expect us to swallow it, even though they spit like fucking Cheez-It dust into our mouth. It's all goopy, you know, when you like sneeze and they were eating Cheez-It and it comes out all crunchy and shit. That's what they're spitting in your mouth, and like, swallow it, you bitch. And I'm not gonna do it, dude. I'm sorry, I'm throwing up.
Giorgio gets recruited by a bunch of absolute retards who apparently represent the best that Section 31 has to offer. I mean, they're so good that she literally spots every single one of them within seconds of entering her bar.
Fuck.
How exactly does the vetting process work for this place? Is it like collect
Kino,
5
stop.
ring pulls and become a secret agent or something?
My cat's
Anyway,
tearing shit
whatever.
up.
Who even cares at this point? The retards apparently need her help capturing an arms dealer who's transporting a dangerous bioweapon, because there's always a dangerous bioweapon in modern Star Trek. So they capture him by punching him in the face.
Really?
I'm not even kidding, that's literally...
Well, here's the problem too, because they don't understand how to make a good villain anymore either. This has been a problem that the MCU has had basically from the start. There's this thing where they're trying to make the villain either too sympathetic, right? Or they make the villain way too sympathetic and they need to have this backstory, so they're a villain because of society or some dumb lame shit like that. I don't know, it's always super gay. But or it's just like a cartoony, like everything else will be serious, it'll be building up, but the villain's this fucking cartoony amalgamation of political figures they don't like. And none of it seems to land because they're not actually building real menacing characters. Like, the thing that works so good with even the remake of Khan is a wildly like imposing figure every time he shows up. And what they're scared to do now is to create a villain that's incredibly well created, build this awesome villain, and then never utilize him again because they're going to beat the villain. They're like, oh, well, how do we make money off of that? How do we make money if they don't become one of the heroes too? So then they're like, well, we're gonna throw them in. They're gonna be this menacing figure. They're gonna show up throughout the thing, but then they're gonna have a good character arc, and now we're gonna put them in a future project because they're the good guy. And Disney's been doing that, like trying to retcon old villains, where they keep making movies on their old villains that now they're heroes for some god awful reason. It's like sometimes you just need a good villain that's so fucking OP and so menacing that he has to be there. And it's just a huge issue with modern cinema. It's not just a Star Trek thing where the villains have no substance. And it's something I've seen a problem with modern writing pretty consistently. And that goes into a whole different direction than even it just being woke. It's just lazy writing. These people worked on like 2 TV shows, and then they're given like they're given the keys to a giant IP, and now all of a sudden it's this giant chasm of shitty writers not understanding what makes a good villain, and then just slapping it out on the screen.
How they take him down. Oh yeah, and there's an excruciatingly dumb chase sequence where Giorgio uses a magical bullshit device to phase out of sync with her surroundings so that nobody can touch her and she can literally walk through walls. But like, if that's the case, then shouldn't she just fall right through the floor into space? How does she even breathe if her lungs are out of phase with the oxygen molecules in the air? Who even cares? But oh no, then a mysterious masked man shows up and steals the weapon. I wonder who this man could possibly be, considering all the other characters in the movie are already accounted for. That's when Giorgio reveals that the weapon actually comes from the same alternate universe as herself and has the potential to wipe out half the galaxy if it detonates.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
The Terran Empire plan.
This is another issue. Now, he kind of did it with the meme or whatever, but I've noticed so often where it's just like a bunch of bullshit happens, and then they ramp everything up in like the last 30 minutes. This is something I've seen in like a lot of indie games, and it always kind of annoys me where nothing happens. Let's throw everything at the wall to just fucking make it work. I was playing a game recently, I can't even remember what game I was playing recently, but I got to the end and it was just throwing fuck all at me, dude. Everything it possibly could was getting thrown at me in the last 30 minutes to the point that I'm like, Jesus, dude, what the hell is even going on? What's even the point, dude? Like, everything up until this point felt like nothing mattered, and now all of a sudden we're doing all this heavy lifting and everything's supposed to matter now? Come on, dude. Why? Why are you doing this to me? I can't remember the game I was playing. Give me a half second here. Fear 3. Fear 3 was that way. Now, I don't hate Fear 3, but there was a lot of shit in Fear 3 where they were just like, you're doing stuff. Call of Duty. Remember, it's a Fear. Slow motion Call of Duty. And you're like, okay, I'm having fun with it. Whatever, dude. I guess we're just playing levels or whatever. And then you get to the end of the game. It's like, do you remember this and this and this and this and this? And then this attaches. And you're like, bro, stop. Oh, you're overloading me with information right now. You're just, all this information you could have been building to slowly throughout the course of a grand narrative. Instead, you're just throwing everything at the fucking wall in the last seconds. All the ideas you had are just getting shoved in the last second for no reason. If Reagan took accountability, I might give her a chance. Well, she can't take accountability. Reagan will never be able to take accountability because of the fact that the Daily Wire will not allow her to.
Plan to blow it up and then use the resulting chaos to cross over into our reality and conquer the entire galaxy for resources.
Right.
Like, why even stop there? Why not just blow up the entire universe since we're making up stupid shit now? So it's up to Giorgio and her band of idiots to track down the masked man and stop him and recover the weapons so they can save the galaxy. But it's not going to be as easy as that because there's a traitor.
Well, and that's kind of the problem that I've seen. Like, somebody in chat just said they've shifted blame onto Brett, and that's what they've done. And this is back. I kind of covered the Brett Cooper thing a little bit ago, but well, I'll address it again right here. It's one of those things that this is what the Daily Wire has done forever, and this is kind of the same thing where you look into what's going on with the movies and stuff now, is a lot of people don't know how to take accountability anymore, so they release something that's dog shit, right? They release something that's dog shit, or they do something skeevy that pushes somebody out that everybody likes, and then they start doing fucking retroactive I'm the victim shit. You see it all the time with movies and games. The one game I know for a fact does this, and this is the same thing that fucking what's-his-face from the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, did with the Daily Wire, is after everything's said and done, now that they're getting backlash or things aren't going their way, their game or YouTube channel is failing, now they're trying to pick up the pieces. And this happened with Immortals of Avion. Now that game is dog shit. The writing is dog shit. The gameplay is mid at best. And then after the game did really really bad. No, it wasn't because we made a mid-game. It's not because we made bad creative choices or bad internal political decisions. No. It's your fault. You guys are the bad guys. You're the bad guys. We're the victims. It's because of this reason and this excuse and that excuse. Instead of just taking accountability and saying, this is what happened. We disagreed. She wanted more money. Whatever. It's not Reagan's fault, it's our fault. Or it's not my team's fault, it was my creative decisions. We made some bad choices in here that didn't mesh with audiences, and now we're getting the backlash. Instead of going to a bunch of outlets or having a bunch of other people talk about how this is the problem, they're fucking deflecting, and I hate that. Because I remember with the Mortals of Avion, where they were like, oh, so the reason it failed was because we made an FPS game in 2024 or 2023 or whatever. And I'm like, dude, that is not why, because RoboCop came out the exact same year and it's fucking killing it. It was their best-selling game. And then when I see shit like this movie right here, it's like, well, you're using this IP, it's doing shitty, and then you're going to deflect saying audiences are fucking sexist or whatever. You're deflecting from the fact that you don't have creative writing skills and you probably shouldn't have the job you have, but you know the right people and have the right connections and you're a part of the right union. And you can see it in almost every industry, and it's so funny that happened with the Daily Wire, because they literally harken on the fact that they're not like the mainstream media, they're not like Hollywood, they're not like it when they are the exact same thing, and we are seeing the same echoes that we're having problems in the movie industry with the Daily Wire right now.
In their midst, who's killing them off one by one. Will they be able to pull together and save the galaxy? Will Giorgio be able to atone for the sins of her past? Does anyone even fucking care? I certainly didn't, because Section 31 is a terrible movie. And I don't just mean a terrible Star Trek movie, that's practically a foregone conclusion these days. I mean a terrible movie by any metric that you care to use to quantify these things. It's boring when it tries to be exciting, dumb when it thinks it's smart, laughable when it's trying to be serious, and depressingly bleak when it tries to be funny. It's like it wants to be two different movies at the same time, one dark and serious and violent, the other a whimsical, quippy, light-hearted adventure, and the two things go together.
So this is the exact same thing that happened with Immortals of Avion, 100%. This is a writing thing that you can see over and over and over again. These fucking taint wagons like to drag their aids over everything that they do without actually looking to see if it's smart. Now the whole premise of Immortals of Avion, the big twist is that the entire world's been racist to these underground people, and you're like, whoa, we're doing a racism thing. Cool, after you just made quippy jokes the entire fucking game. The entire game is just laced with shitty millennial sarcasm, and then you get to where you're trying to go into broad, like powerful messages, and then you're not actually giving these messages the due process they deserve, the nuance they deserve. You're just throwing them in there to get brownie points. And Savannah obviously thinks this is the funniest thing ever. Huh? You're a little goofball. But it annoys the shit out of me, because it's like, okay, so you want to have this grand narrative moment where you talk about a real issue that happened. It was a bad thing. Slavery bad. Wow. Racism bad. Wow. You're like, you get to these points, and instead of giving it the nuance it deserves, you're just like, oh, that's cringe. Or I'm gonna do that fake thing where they say something and I go meh, 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 meh. It's like, well, how are we taking something that's serious and then toning it down to the level for fucking toddlers? It's retarded is what it is. It's absolutely retarded writing, and I hate it.
But as well as chocolate sauce on a doner kebab. The plot is tedious and simplistic, desperately trying to portray itself as this complex mystery to unravel, when really it's just another basic bitch revenge story about a guy with a super weapon and a grudge to settle. It's the same thing that's formed the basis of basically every Trek movie for the past 20 years, and anyone with more functioning brain cells than a block of wood will be able to figure it out about an hour before the actual characters do. Speaking of characters, this is easily the most idiotic group of retards I've seen on screen since, well, the last Alex Kurtzman Star Trek projects. Each one is precisely one character trait that gets dialed up so high that it actually starts to feel like a joke after a while. I mean, I'm assuming the writers watched Guardians of the Galaxy just before making this, because that's the kind of tone and banter they're desperately trying for here.
Well, here's the thing about Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I know a lot of people like to shit on James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy, but Guardians of the Galaxy maintained the same tone from the first movie through the last movie, and that's what you expect with Guardians Guardians of the Galaxy. And I hate when people like shit on Guardians of the Galaxy because it's it's the problem of that type of writing that you see in other things. But that type of writing works for Guardians of the Galaxy because they're the they're the ragtag group of douchebags. That's what they are. That's what makes them charming. It's like Deadpool being goofy because he's Deadpool. That's exactly what you want. That's exactly what I wanted out of Guardians of the Galaxy. After I didn't know who Guardians of the Galaxy was until I watched that movie, and I'm like, yes, I want more of this. And I got 2 more movies, and I think they're both fantastic. I think they're both fantastic, and I love the shit out of them. But when I'm watching something like Star Wars or Star Trek or some of these other IPs, I don't want them to feel like Guardians of the Galaxy, because now you're just being fucking lazy because it worked for them, it's gonna work for us, and that's a bad mentality to have, to try to change the whole line of all this lore, all these other movies. You're like, oh, they all had the same vibe and feel. Well, now we want it to be more like Guardians of the Galaxy because money, I guess. I don't fucking know. And they don't have half of the creative writing that the Guardians of the Galaxy story does. There is creativity, there is turmoil that the characters go through in moments of weakness that you see between all these characters in these different arcs that isn't had in these other IPs. And I think that it's something that Guardians of the Galaxy does really well, and it's almost a contrast to what the rest of Marvel does. And that's why the Guardians of the Galaxy movie did well. That's why Deadpool did well, is because there was more care crafted into these characters, and there's more people standing behind the idea of what they they started as, and they weren't willing to compromise on it. Because stuff like Thor had never really had an identity, and it's just kind of all over the place. And you look at some of the other characters that they've just kind of fucking ruined their character by trying to make them fit in this MCU fucking paint by numbers. Yeah. Trying to make them fit in the MCU paint by numbers has ruined these characters because of the fact that they're trying to make everything the same because it worked for one thing.
The big difference, though, is that Guardians was written and directed by someone who actually knew what he was doing. This wasn't.
He didn't shit on James Gunn, so if you got the assumption that I assumed that he was gonna hate on, I've seen a lot of people shit on the James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy, so I was already in fucking glazer mode. I was cum gobbling like a king.
And there's Michelle Yeoh. I like her as an actress, I really do. She's got charisma and screen presence, and even in her 60s, she can still kick ass surprisingly well. But she can't do everything. The roles she plays have to complement her sensibilities as an actor, and Philippa Georgiou just isn't that kind of character. She looks awkward and uncomfortable trying to play a femme fatale anti-hero like this, and ends up overacting to the point that it actually becomes kind of embarrassing to watch. I mean, I don't know, maybe she misunderstood the script and thought Section 31 was supposed to be a goofy parody. To be honest, I'm not entirely convinced it isn't now. Now, I'm going to wrap this review up quickly because I feel like I'm actively becoming dumber the more I talk about this movie, so instead I'm going to finish with a little request to the fine people at Paramount's. No, forget that. This is a desperate plea. For the love of God, guys, stop making Star Trek. And especially stop this talentless moron from making Star Trek. Put simply, he isn't your guy. He was never your guy, and the longer you keep him
So I don't hate the Lower Decks. So the Lower Decks has the problem of being a Star Trek show. It never should have been a Star Trek show, but I enjoyed the characters of the Lower Deck. I think that it had the potential to be something great, but it never should have been a Star Trek show. It should have been its own IP. I will die on that hill. I think that, because I have watched the Lower Decks, and I think there's a lot of charm and a lot of fun, but it never felt like it was Star Trek. It felt like something completely different. It felt like it was an idea that was made for something else, and they just slapped an IP on it, which is one of my least favorite things when these companies do that. It's like the Prey 2017 game where they just fucking slapped the name Prey on it. It was like, these idiots will buy it because it's a part of a series they love. I hate that. I hate it so much.
He isn't your guy. He was never your guy, and the longer you keep him around, the more damage he's doing.
I tried to watch some of those other shows. They're all trash. They're all fucking garbage. Every single one of them couldn't keep me interested for an entire episode, let alone an entire season. But I did enjoy the Lower Decks. Even with its cringe, I thought it had some good moments.
To your IP. Get rid of him no matter how much it costs to buy him out. Get rid of his shitty production outfit. Erase everything that they've made for the past 10 years and bring in people who actually understand what made Star Trek work. You have officially hit rock bottom here. The only way now is up. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
That was a good
What are you
video.
doing? Pouring the milk first.
That was a good video. First critical drinker video I have ever seen was pretty solid. Pretty solid. I'll give him a like. I'll have to check him out again. I'll hit the subscribe button, which you guys should all hit on my channel, because I'm trying to blow the fuck up, guys. I'm trying to be a big deal. I want to be a big deal so bad. I want to be a big deal. Dad wants to be a big deal. Dad wants to be a big deal. But in reality, that was my. I think my big problem is them trying to make everything the same, and then they think that they have to put a big IP on, because like this idea that everything needs to have a big IP attached to it is just so disingenuous.